You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And today I have reached out to this person to come onto this show because she speaks my language, I think. And we're going to find out if she does during the episode. Welcome, Dr Simone Boer. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for the invitation to jump on board today.
Oh, that's my absolute pleasure. The stuff I was researching on your website, I'm just like, yay, yay, yay. It's all fantastic. And to tell everybody who you are, you run the company A Fresh Approach, and you are a coach, a strategist, and wealth creation kind of guru. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I all of that in one, and I use brain hacks to get results.
Ooh, we love a good hack. It means we don't have to put so much energy behind everything.
100%.
So is it right that you're Geelong, Melbourne? You're in my area as well.
I am. I didn't realise that you were also Geelong, Melbourne, but absolutely.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I should say Melbourne, my area, Geelong, not my area. But when you compare it to China, Geelong's my area.
Absolutely, 100%. So, yes, sunny Geelong. However, I'm a Melbourne frequenter as well. I have lived in Melbourne. I've visited Melbourne. I've worked in Melbourne.
Oh, fantastic. So when you visit Melbourne, what suburb are you visiting? What area?
Most of the time it's the CBD or it's the western suburbs.
Ah, nice. I'm over Southeastern Way. I'm just near Oakley in Huntingdale, and it's the area where a lot of the Greeks live. And I tell you what, the quality of food we have here is magnificent. But when we moved into this place, it already had an established veggie patch, citrus and fruit trees everywhere. The quality of the soil, thanks to them, is also pretty magnificent as well. So
amazing.
Lots of good things in this area, I have to say. So how did you become a coach and strategist, wealth creation person? Tell me about the journey.
Oh, thanks, Julie. So it really is the summation of my whole life. I've had over 8 different careers, from a neuroscientist through to a data analyst, through to a strategist, a workshop facilitator, property developer and property investor. I've even, would you believe, managed or headed up all the pools and gyms within the Geelong region as well.
How varied. That's magnificent.
It's incredibly varied. However, what I am now is I've merged all of my experience. However, there's one little bit that we're missing here, which is the coaching part. So the coaching part came along about 10 years ago when I myself had my very first coaching session. I had no idea what I was in for. And despite all of my history and my background and knowledge in psychology and neuroscience, that first session I went, what's just happened to me? And it was the complete change in perspective that I had experienced as a result of a few key questions from my situation at the time. And all of the behaviour that I was emanating and had been emanating for the previous 2 years were dissolved in an instant.
Oh, that just makes me feel so thrilled. Because life can be like that. Sometimes it's just seeing it, realising it, and that's enough to dissipate it.
Exactly.
Or for it to dissipate. Yeah.
I sat there and I went, what's just happened to me in this moment, that the behaviour and all the baggage that I have been carrying for the last 2 years, and I've now got a brand new perspective, and everything just dissipated on that. So I started research coaching, going, what is this magic elixir Kool-Aid juice that I've just started to drink? And lo and behold, I went, this is actually the part that I was missing in neuroscience. This is the part that I was missing from my psychology study and all of that. So as many coaches do, they start to accumulate not 1, but 2, 3, 4, many certifications. And I always said when I retire, I would go into coaching. So I retired 2 years
at an
ago.
early age.
Absolutely. I retired 2 years ago from the corporate life and went, now it's time to go into coaching. And for me, I love property investment, wealth creation. And that was the vehicle that enabled me to retire and really go off and do what I love, and really
Gosh.
then spend the time, energy to invest into that. And I've gone, well, what's so special? What will people be interested in? And literally, it's some summation of all of my life experience. And that's what you get from me. So people come and talk to me about that wealth creation. But because I've got that strategy background, I put the strategy over it and the coaching into it as well.
I reckon that line of, I love property and wealth creation, and that's what allowed me to retire and then do what I love. I think that line by itself will have a lot of people calling you. Isn't that a dream, though? What a wonderful dream to have realized. That's a wonderful path.
Oh, thank you, Julie. And it's really funny because I swanned into one of my earlier places of work, and I just said, "Don't worry, guys, I won't be here for long. I'll be retired by the time I'm 40." And everyone just sat there and went, "Who is this chick? Like, how does she seem so confident about it?" But it was really at the time, 6, 7 years earlier, me going, "Well, I've got a goal in mind. No idea how to get there, no idea how to make it happen, or even if I'd get there." And it all magically came together just by focusing on that goal bit by bit over the years. And so then after retiring as such, I went, well, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to go straight into coaching. And what will people want to be coached on? And it's literally the things that I have walked the path first, that I can help people coach. Now, I don't believe that people should necessarily follow my footsteps, but you need to have someone who has knowledge of that to enable them to ask the right questions to push you forward and achieve more, achieve what you want in life.
That's it. Because, I mean, I often use the analogy when I'm teaching dental teams and team members, when we go through, getting over the barriers that naturally come up when we're learning and growing. And I often use the analogy of a unicycle. Like, what are you doing in that whole path between sitting on a unicycle for the very first time up until the point in time you are actually riding that unicycle? Everything prior to that's failure. But it kind of relates here as well, because if I wanted to learn how to ride a unicycle, would I go and learn it from someone who plays the piano? No, I would go to someone that's had the experience of doing it, because they understand the failures that are required, what success looks like, the stepping stones to be able to get there.
Oh, I love the unicycle analogy.
Don't you love the
I'm
unicycle?
going to be using that now. Thanks, Julie.
It's my pleasure. And it relieves the pressure. It's like, oh God, of course I'd fail up until the point in time I succeed. Of course. That's just the way it happens. I so love, Simone, what you said about you saying, I'm going to be retired in a couple of years' time. I'm under 40, and everyone's looking at you like you're a freak. Going, who the hell does she think she is? What a naive person she is. And you also, well, I had clarity of goals. And I think there's a difference, isn't it? We can all have clarity around our goals, and we can be passionately attached to those goals, but it's the passionate pursuit of it that made your result different, your outcome different.
Yep. I cannot agree more with you on that, Julie. The way that I was able to so-called retire on my terms was the path to get there was not the path that I would have envisaged. And in a similar way, along with my 8 careers, if you told me when I was in neuroscience in a wet laboratory working by myself that I would end up working for like heading up pools and gyms in a region, or if you told me that I would be able to be the catalyst and build a vision that basically catalyzes the regeneration of a region, And if you told me that I was to do that, you know, in the 5 or the 10 or the 15 years since then, or that I would retire by 40 and start my own business and be coaching people to make the same amazing life transformations, I would have gone, I have no idea of this person you are talking to. Who is this chick that so-called can do all of that? How does it even play out? Does she even get any downtime? Does she get any time for herself? And that's just the way my path has laid out, that at each point in my life I've gone, right, what to, where to next? What does that look like? Always holding the goal loosely, knowing that life circumstances change, that various things happen, but by being very clear and going, I'm going to set the goal here, you, in a way, put that out to the universe, or you manifest that through the different opportunities that come as well.
Oh, it's all good stuff, man. I want to keep talking about every third word. I think, I'll talk about that for half an hour. Now I want to talk about that for half an hour. And you're right, because goals they evolve. Depending on what's going on in our world, you think about the goals that we had when we're 20 years old compared to the goals that we have now, wildly different. And then you throw in there, now I'm married, or now I've got kids, or now I've got a different career path. The goals need to be flexible. How important is really allowing yourself that time to contemplate? Because I feel like our brains are so busy with all the tech and all the stuff and all the negative thoughts that are going on in our brains as well. Like, no, you won't be able to achieve that. You know, that beautiful voice in the back of all of our minds. How important has contemplation time been for you?
Oh, wow. Well, where do I start with that, Julie? It has always been incredibly important. So when I started coaching, as in myself being coached, I said to my coach at the time, oh my God, I am so sick of reflecting and journaling about myself. When do I get to learn about other people? And what I learned through that journey was that it's all about me. It's all about me and my life journey and how much I'm growing and learning about myself and how I put myself out there. And then when COVID happened, and, you know, that really big change across the world, whereby we were all thrown from our so-called office environment into whatever environment we were in, I sat there and went, this is a crucible moment in my life. And it's a crucible moment across everyone's lives, but how am I going to make the most of it? And so I realized that in the previous probably 2 years, I'd lost a bit of that reflection time and that time for contemplation. So I went, now's the time, if anything's the time, to sit down. And I sat down on the lounge floor with a big piece of paper and I went, what do I want from my life? And how do I, in all of that panic that people were having, the toilet paper and all of that, how do I carve out the life that I want? And how do I look at this COVID place with curiosity? And so for the first few months of COVID, as everyone was in, I guess, a panic and fear state, I was in very much a curious space going, this is curious. How can I shape my life and my world in this space? And I went, well, what clearer goals do I want? It's been a couple of years since I looked at goals. What goals do I want to achieve? What does that look like? And so that initial, I guess, return to contemplation after 2 or 3 years of not having it has really set me up to continue to contemplate. And I make it a regular practice now to go, right, either I'll do it myself or I'll get someone to contemplate jam with me to try to push me and my thinking even further around how I want to live my life. But not only that, the type of people that I want to attract into my life And then what goals could I have? Because as soon as you start to think, so I sat there after not a couple of years of not having, I guess, the rigor of goals. And yes, you are right, Julie. Things happen in life. For me, that moment was I had my daughter. I was so busy, bringing up my daughter. I was so busy working in strategy, as I said, vision for a region, then managing pools and all of that. I was so busy living life that I went, hang on a sec, am I living life or am I the captain of my life? I feel like I might be the captain, but I feel like I'm just living it. So maybe I'm part of the passenger. So how do I take those reins back in order to now captain my life? And contemplation is a key component of being able to captain your life as well.
And I suppose as a coach, this is part of what you do, isn't it? You help people, because I feel like I contemplate a fair bit. I feel like I'm on track. I do all the workshops, especially around Christmas time. Where's the direction going to be next year? And I find myself defaulting back to that same blank stare look when people say, what do you want for your future? What's important in your life? And when I'm in the zone, you can kind of get there. But I think you're that facilitator of getting to that zone. You're kind of helping people discover what's going on for them when they haven't been able to put that time aside for contemplation, or they haven't asked themselves those kind of questions to garner those sort of important responses. And for some reason in my head, I do know why. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's psychology therapists out there, and this could be wildly inaccurate. I've never been a regular attender of a psychologist, so this could be wildly inaccurate. Whereas there is some kind of therapy you get that it seems to be very reflective in the past of understanding why you are where you are right now. Coaching could be, in my mind, please do contribute to this and let me know where I could be missing the mark. That's more about choosing the future life and start with that plan, working towards it. There's quite a different kind of conversation with those two spaces.
And now you worked out why I left psychology and went into coaching.
I love it. And it's interesting. I was speaking to somebody recently, and there's been an article in one of the dental magazines talking about, and it was really quite surprising. I won't be able to drag the figures through to you right now, but I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes to the actual article. But the number of, I think it was like 61% of dentists who were surveyed had contemplated suicide in the past year. And that shocked me. Whatever figure it was, it shocked me, maybe in 67%. And I thought, oh, what's that? And so I think that's triggered some discussion. And somebody rang me, and who is a colleague, not in the dental space, actually in the accounting space, and said to me that they have a dental client who is having troubles. And he said, why don't you go see a psychologist? And he said, because it could be the end of my career. Did you know that psychologists are bound by ARPA regulations to actually report a client of theirs saying something alarming? And so therefore, it's not a safe and confidential space, where coaches are wildly different. Mm-hmm. So coaching kind of works well for me. Now you.
I cannot agree with you more there, Julie. As you can probably work out, I'm a little bit more creative and freestyle, and I use that really bespoke for the person in front of me. And I do find with psychology that they are bound up by all of these rules and these regulations. So with a coach, though, a coach will absolutely, as long as you're wanting to work on your future or move yourself forward, yes, you may have things back in the past that are stopping you from doing that. But there are hacks and ways and tools in order to release trauma, to release beliefs, to enable you to be able to move forward. But you have to have the want to be able to do that. And
ding, 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 ding. You have to have the want, not to keep reflecting backwards, but to possibly move forward with more boldness and start shifting these beliefs.
Yep, 100%. And the thing is as well, and we'll talk about the brain for just a moment.
Yeah, please do. I love brains. I have one myself.
Yeah, well, so do I. Depends on how much we use it, though. But the most enormous amount of change in a brain happens in our first 8 years of life, from the growing of neuronal pathways to the pruning and linking and all of that. So all of our belief structure occurs as a child that we then carry into our adulthood. So this is all about how we view ourselves, how we view the environment, how we view relationships. So we're two adults now, but we've basically got two structures in our brains. You've got one, I've got one, that have been made up essentially from our childhood. So we've got a childhood structure that changes a bit, but basically the architecture remains the same all the way through. So therefore, if you have experienced, any experiences as a childhood, you carry that through to adulthood. So what a coach can do, or a good coach or a good neuro-coach can do, can actually dissolve some of those beliefs so that you can move forward and go, well, that's not part of me now, and you can move forward. So from a wealth creation perspective, as a child, my mother lost her money through life circumstances, not once, but twice. So I viewed that, and I was always watching her, always working and always saving. Work, save, work, save, work, save for that rainy day. So naturally, what do you become? What would I or anyone around me in that type of environment become? They would become a saver. Now, I could have become a saver all the way through my whole life, and that was it. But knowing that was my belief structure and my environment, I set out to break that. And I broke that purely because someone said to me, you won't ever own a house because you won't be able to put out the money for what a mortgage would entail. And so you can see a single comment is enough to go, what do they mean by that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Robert Kiyosaki says in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's why rich kids, it doesn't matter how stupid you are, you will get rich. Yep. And with poor kids, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you will likely remain poor.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's more deep-seated than that. It's not a conscious level thing, it's a subconscious level thing going on.
100%. And so I set out going, well, how do I break that patterning or the structure in my brain that has that held to then move myself forward? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's just, I guess, a small example of how coaching can help you break some of those patterns, to break out of those cycles, break out of those groundhog loops. And when we talk about groundhog loops, you have groundhog loops by the day, but you can also have groundhog loops that loop around every couple of years, or you can also have generational groundhog loops as well. So it's about, well, how do you break out of some of those groundhog loops that you may experience?
It's interesting because we do things aren't genetic in that they are passed down through ourselves, but they're passed down through observation of behaviour, aren't they? And I was listening to a podcast episode just yesterday about Kate Legg, who is a journo, and she was married to a political journalist, and he'd had affairs over a long period of time, and she's got a book out about it now. And she said she identified the 20 different reasons why, people have affairs. And as she's reading through them, I'm like, yeah, it kind of all makes sense. It's terrible, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it kind of makes sense. But she highlighted the fact that his parents, one of the parent had an affair, and then their son also had an affair, but they were all as upset with each other at the perpetrator of it. And so I think we sometimes are lulled into this thought that if it doesn't make sense, I wouldn't do it. No, it doesn't make sense, and we keep doing it.
And that's exactly the types of groundhog loops that I'm talking about. those groundhog loops that you can't help yourself. You go, well, I'm, why would any sane person do that? Then all of a sudden you find yourself living the same life of your parents or your grandparents over and over again. And you're like, oh, when did I become like my mother? Or when did I become like my father? And the funny thing is, myself and my partner, we have a pact that if either of us start to turn into either one of our parents, we are to call each other on it.
I think you're going to say we've got to call the police, we've got to call the therapist, we've got to call the coach.
Yeah, 100%.
An emergency line. That's golden. I think that's fantastic. The beliefs that we have around money, I think this is one of those spaces where you sit back logically, conscious brain, and go, "What? I would not have any beliefs against having money. Of course, having money would be fantastic. I'm open to it. Bring it all in. It's not coming in, but I'm open to it. It doesn't make sense that I would feel any other way." But some of us have clear blocks around money, don't we, without really fully being aware of it?
100%. And it is, there's so many reasons for those blocks. So it could be, as I said, it could be that groundhog loop. It could be how you were raised. It could be you even have a certain money cap over how much you can earn. And therefore you're calling out subconsciously means that you won't ever bring that in. It could be as well the way that you view how money comes into your life and how it exits your life. So those ones are what I would term the spenders, who are constantly living by the card, or the maxed out several cards as well. So how you call in money and how money exits is literally all yourself. It is also your belief around money, but it's also how you view money. And sometimes we can treat money or have a relationship, get ourselves mixed up in our relationship with money as well. So sometimes we actually, without realizing it, and this goes back into that subconscious and unconscious programming, may treat money as our relationship with our mother. So we may actually go, money to me feels hard. And one of the things I say to people going, who in your life was hard when you were growing up? And it's like, that's such a foreign question. And as I said, this being able to reframe something to like then go, I just said money was hard, but now you're asking me about my relationship. Actually, you know what? Growing up, my relationship with my father was hard. And, it was because he was always quite, potentially tough on me. Now, this is just me playing out a scenario here.
This is not your life. This is not
my life.
Simone, this is your life.
Yeah. And people then go, then we start to unpick that relationship. But by unpicking that then starts to change your relationship with money, because you go, right, I was treating my relationship with money as my relationship with my father or my mother or my brother or my sister or my uncle or my aunt or whatever it is. So the way that we work with money isn't as easy as bring it all in and then it doesn't come, or it does come, or whatever. There is so much you need to unpick around money, understanding what money is, how it comes in, how it goes out, your relationship with it. But not only that, the goals. What do you actually want? And so many people don't plan. They do not plan for wealth or even understand what wealth is. And wealth isn't just money. It's about opportunity. It's about time. It's about mindset too. There's so many components to wealth. And so if we just treat wealth as money, but then we don't plan it, well, guess what? The future is going to hit you before you even get there.
Gosh, one of the thoughts that's coming up for me is that, or two things, and this could just be me, I admit that. But number one, growing up in, a middle-class family, and, in that generation, it was, very lucky that one parent could stay home while the other parent went out and earned a living. So, but it also meant there wasn't floods of money around us either. But so you can imagine people like me look at large amounts of money and feel like it's a magical spell out there. That's not quite real. It's not something that I can put a hook in and drag into my life. So that's the first thing that was coming up to me. And the second thing was that money seems to be one of those things where you either have it or you don't. There's no grey. There's no middle space there. I either have it or I don't. And so therefore, how much would I need to have before I start saying, I have money? Because, of course, being in my position right now, I think I'm in the top 3% of the world's population in terms of wealth because of the money that I do have. So it's all relative, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And this is the thing. It is about, for you, going, how much is enough? So I've just reframed that by going, well, I either have it or I don't. But then the question is, well, how much is enough for you? And then once you come up with that figure, you go, well, do I want a market uplift in my life? Or you can also be quite focused and go, do I want a market downlift in my life? Of which you can focus on giving, or when I say giving, like putting it to charity, or other benefactors away. And so it's about going in, that 5 or 10 years, I want to be in a position whereby I can sell off my practice or sell off my business. I can live off the land sustainably in a whatever. And therefore, I plan to give, for example, $500,000 to foundations or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you can be really quiet around money. Well, what do you want with it? What is enough? And do you want to uplift your life? And if you uplift your life through the big house or the once a year holiday or whatever it is, or earning enough so that you are covered till you're 90 years old, and then saying, well, that's enough to get me to 90 years old, but I'll sell it all off now. I've got this amount that'll keep me to 90 years old, and this will start a foundation or whatever it might be. So there's a lot you can do with money, but you need to be able to be really conscious of what you want to do with it and what your goals are with it as well.
Yeah, and, being a coach, you would help with all of that because values come into this. Your ultimate purpose that you believe why you're here on this earth comes into this as well, because money just for money's sake doesn't normally, or maybe it does for a lot of people. Is that a strong enough motivator?
Well, the thing is, money is completely intangible. We've made it up. We've literally made it up. We've gone, back in the olden days, we've found some shells on a beach and gone, this is currency, and we will exchange this shell for this loaf of bread. Or, you know what, even at one point, cows were currency, and people would take the cow in to then go buy the year's supply of whatever it is. So then what we've done is we've then gone, well, here's coins, and we attach a value to this coin, or here is a note, and now it's gone into the digital space, and we attach a value to that number. So money is actually intangible. It's the value we place on it, for whatever value we place on it. And the thing is, with money, it enables us to live the lifestyle that we choose. So money is benign. It's literally a piece of paper or a number, but it's the way it enables us to live the life that we choose.
How far ahead from a purely financial dollar figure, because I imagine they say the more specific you are with your goals, then that's one of the, that's the S in SMART goal, be specific. Yet sometimes that can, if you said, oh, what's your money goal? You feel like you want to say $10 million because you think you've got your whole life to achieve that. But do you suggest, when we're working on how we believe, what our values, what our beliefs are around money and the value of money and what it's going to mean for our life, do you encourage more shorter term goals or both short and long term goals?
Both.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I work with my clients on is to go over 20. When I say drop a bucket list, that's just too big much for people. So I go 25 years, list everything you would want to achieve in 25 years. So list absolutely, which is usually long enough for a person to think of around a lifetime. So it's enough to give them some rope around the edges or fencing around the edges to rein them in. And then from that, it's like, well, what do you think you're able to achieve in the next maybe 5 years? So it could be that, for example, you could go 25 years, I want to visit 100 countries around the world. And you go, well, 5 years, I reckon I could get maybe 15 countries. Okay, so how would you need to break that 5 years down into 3 months or 12 months? What does the next 12 months look like to you? Now, the thing is, I like to actually work in 3 month spaces. And the reason why I like to work in 3 month spaces after you've done that work is 3 months is 1% of your 25 years. So if you go ahead and do 3 lots of 3 month, views and plans and goals, you're effectively that 4% of your 25 years. But let me tell you, if you do that regularly enough, you actually end up achieving within 12 months like 10% of your 25-year goals. So it is a hack. It is a shortcut to be able to go, let's I guess, live life much fuller and freer. So when you look at, I guess, how full my life is, and people go to me, how do you do that? Well, the hack is you have the long-term goal, but you also have the very short-term goals to enable you to get to that long-term goal as well.
And when you're achieving those short-term goals, you've become the person that achieves those goals now.
Yes.
And so now you are a different person functioning in your world.
Yep.
It's bringing me back to, I haven't thought about this for ages, but I love this story. And it may relate, but I just keep thinking about it, so I'll mention it. Have you heard of when Tony Robbins and people like that have said, we overestimate what we can get done in 1 year and we underestimate what we can get done in 10 years. And I used to think, bullshit. If someone said to me, what are you going to achieve in 10 years? I'm like, everything I want. I'm going to have so many great friends. I'm going to have so much great money. I'm going to be a much better version of myself. I'm going to be freaking awesome. And I'm going to have very lofty goals. I'm going to live in a mansion and everyone's going to love me. Everyone in the world's going to love me because I've got 10 years to get there. And so I was intrigued by this concept. So I did a bit of research and I came across an article that was written by somebody, and I should have written his name down. I didn't. But he was talking about a game, an online game called Osmos. And in this game, you are a particle moving around a medium and you're coming along across other particles. Some of those other particles are smaller than you. And because you're larger, you overcome them and you gobble them up and you remain alive to continue wandering around the medium. And then sometimes you come across larger atoms than you, cells than you. And they, if you bump into them, because they're larger, they overtake you and that's your game over. So in this article, it spoke about this is what we are like in life. We are of a certain size, and that size is our knowledge, our wisdom, our experiences, our skills. And as we overcome smaller things, it makes us bigger. It makes us stronger. It makes us more skilled, more highly skilled, more mastery, have more mastery in certain areas. And so we get bigger and bigger as long as we do tackle these things in life, as long as we do go down the path of formulating these plans and actually taking those actions, we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at some point, when that huge cell that was bigger than us, that would, if we'd bumped into them, that would have taken us over and our game would have been over, we have now developed this new space for ourselves. And now that cell is smaller than us and we can overtake that as well. And so whereas before the goal was way too big, but now the goal is completely able to be overcome because we have changed as human beings. And it really helped me understand how, well, in 10 years' time, we would have gained so much knowledge, wisdom, experiences as long as we take action in our life. That's the big but. That I have no idea what my aspirations and goals are going to be then because I'm going to be a different person.
You have just described my life there, Julie.
Really?
If I
You're
go
an
back,
atom.
if I go back to the start of the session when I said I never envisaged myself as a psych person or in neuroscience to have achieved what I have, it is exactly because of those osmosis, me able to, shape and shift and grow to be able to fill out those spaces. Yeah. And so this is the, power of coaching as well, is it ignites you to change yourself. And so I was working with a client just a couple of months ago about some goals. And at the time, it seemed so ridiculous, the goals that he was setting to himself. But I would have called them stretch goals. And, if he'd have achieved half, that was a win. And 3 months later, just last week when I was speaking with him, he had achieved it. And I said, now, do you remember you set those goals in January? And he went, I did too. I said, so what then happens is once you achieve those goals, there is also that identity shift as well. And so whilst you've described all of the values, the mindset and the belief, but there is this identity shift that you also need to catch up yourself on to go, well, actually, I was that person, but I'm now this person. And that can take a bit of its time as well to be able to catch up. And a similar way that for me, my own identity shift, becoming a mother was a really big identity shift. And then becoming a mother of 2 children was a massive identity shift as well, which it was funny. I didn't realize that my identity was shifting at the time, but someone said to me, you now need to understand your identity as a mother of 2 children. And I'm like, oh, we're back in that space again. I thought I was done that when I first became a mother. Now you're telling me I have to deal with this identity stuff again. So it is about once you achieve goals and once you achieve certain life experiences, enabling yourself to understand that your identity has shifted and almost playing catch up with your new identity, going, oh, this is now me. But in 10 years' time, absolutely, you will be a different person. And hopefully by then your identity is also shifted and you've caught up to your identity by then as well.
Gosh, the identity side of it's just huge, as you were saying all of that. It's like we want the goals, we want to achieve the goals, but we want to maintain the comfort of being who we are right now. And I don't want to be different. I like my life right now. I feel nice and comfy, as I say. So how much of that actually gets in our way of success, that we understand the logic and we do have a desire to shift and change our identity on a conscious level, but maybe subconscious. It's like, no, that's a bit dangerous. You don't want to go there.
And that's where self-sabotage comes in. Because we are afraid of our own success. We are afraid of what that will mean if we are successful, or what that will mean to our identity, or how we will change the way that we live life. And I put it back to people going, you live life on your own terms.
You've always got control.
Yeah, your identity may shift, but you choose how to live your life. You choose how you view yourself. You choose your identity. Obviously, life situations will come that will shift your identity, but you will be more successful and happier in life. And success, once again, is really what makes you happy. There's nothing more than that. Just saying success is what will make you happy.
Yeah.
And so you go, you choose what your success looks like. You choose how to live life on your terms, and that's success.
I love that. Charles, my magnificent husband, he says that, and I think he read this somewhere, or it could be him morphing it into his own, but that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, and you get to choose the worthy ideal.
I couldn't agree more. It literally is the progressive realization. You don't always have to achieve that goal or whatever it is that you've set, but it is that progress for you.
Oh, it's all so good. It's all so good. Now, the brain hacks that you talk about, how are these things that through your life you've recognized, man, we don't need to go through so much time, energy, money to actually get success in these things, at combating these things and stopping them from being barriers to our life?
Yeah, so I'm literally known as the hacks queen. I am a hack. I have put hacks into my business. I have put hacks into my life. I have put hacks into my brain, and and literally, I love the concept of hacks because it enables me to live my life much easier. And so from a brain hacks perspective, obviously there's wealth hacks, there's property investment hacks, there's everything I touch is a hack. So
Everything is hack worthy.
Exactly. But if you think about it, our brain is like only 2 or 5% of the weight of our body. However, it uses 20% of our body's energy.
Crikey.
Yeah. So it's literally punching above its weight.
Yeah.
It is a glucose consumer. It's an energy consumer. Now, remembering as well that I said that basically the structures of the brain are formed from a child. Now, the reason why the brain works like that is it takes so much to power the brain. There's such an energy consumer that it takes shortcuts. And so these structures that it gets built as a child is essentially the brain's shortcuts. So a hack is essentially a way to cut through that shortcut. And if you think about the brain and the narratives and the stories it tells, it's like grooves on a record player, going around and around and around. So a brain hack, you just lift up the pin or the needle and put on a different groove or put it on a different record. And that's literally what a brain hack is. So, and a brain hack can be a tool, an activity, a question that just cuts through that record playing groove and moves it somewhere else.
I love it. I love it. People who are very young won't know what you're talking about with a needle on a record, but I love it because I understand it. No, that is fantastic. I remember, and I hate quoting this person because they have no credibility in my eyes at all. But Dr. Phil, I read his book years and years ago, so when I was very, very young, and actually I wasn't that young, but anyway, I read his book years ago. And one of the, when people say, oh, but then, why did you behave in that way? Well, because of this and because of that and because of, it happened when I was 10 and then my father said that. And that's why. And then he asked the question, and how is that working for you? I'm terrified of heights, and how's that working for you? Oh, considering I'm a street sweeper or whatever you call it. They wash the windows up on the skyscrapers. It's not working for me. And usually that whole thing of, and how's that working for you? You go, well, it's not. And stop it. You're like, oh, that's kind of clarity. And so that's one of the things I think about too. And have you ever seen Bob Newhart's coming right back? This is back way back when. But Bob Newhart, he's a comedian from years ago, and he did a comedy skit where he's a psychotherapist, and he has somebody come in and she complains about this and that and all the things in her life and all these behaviours that have been triggered by other bits in her past and stuff. And one of the ones, she had an eating disorder, and so she said, I keep throwing up meals. And he said, why would you do that? And she said, because I'm compelled by all these things in my past, And she said, what should I do? And he said, I got it for you. And she gets a pen and paper out, and he goes, you won't need to write it down. Oh, I'd like to write it down. I might forget. Okay, well, you can write it down if you like. Just 2 words. Stop it. And that's what it feels like. That's possibly one of those things too. It's like we think things are more complex, but if they're able to be hacked, again, we've got that control over the complexity or the ease with which we can open ourselves up to change.
You have just described my whole life. Again.
Again. I'm going to read you a quote. I think you're going to love this quote, because this is one many people will relate to, after a relationship breakdown from years and years ago, I'm talking, and you go, oh, I'm wounded. I feel wounded from it all. I'm just going to grab this. And you go, oh, now I'm going to have to recover from it. I hope my new partner is patient, because I'm going to have to recover from all the past and stuff like that. And then I really I knew what I was doing to myself. I wasn't taking complete responsibility and stuff like that. So I thought, I really want to get over this real quick. And then I came across a quote by Marcus Aurelius. And I'll hold it up. Let's see if I can read it at the same time. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. And that was one of those things for me where I'm like, get out. I control that. And I think we don't always. And I've got to tell you, 2 weeks of reading that every day, I had a completely different experience. We feel like things are beyond our control. We have control over every thought that goes through our mind. And you're saying even subconsciously.
100%. And so the hacks will actually cut through the conscious thoughts and go into the subconscious.
That's very exciting to me.
It is. And the thing is as well, our environment is exactly a reflection of who we are. So we have subconsciously chosen our environment or the way we live our life, and we have the choice to change all of it through subconsciously and consciously as well. And the hack actually goes to the subconscious, because 95% of all of our decisions is subconscious. So why would we try to consciously change ourselves when we can go straight into the subconscious and change the subconscious, the seat and the root of all of our decisions and beliefs and fears?
This is life-changing stuff you're talking about, isn't it? Because we are driven, we're driven 95% of our time, we're driven by subconscious thought, not by conscious thought. Mm-hmm. And so we think, again, all the conscious thoughts that are going through, but we can tell ourselves as often as we like, stop doing it, stop that, do this instead. But unless we are tapping into the conscious thought and what drives it, it's kind of just repeating stuff and getting frustrated with ourselves for failing over and over again.
Yep, 100%. So by going to the root cause of it all subconsciously, you can change that behavior, that pattern, the life that you're living. You can dissolve that trauma of which you've been spending your whole life trying to escape from. And the more that I'm working with people, the more I'm realizing every single person has trauma. It's just different scales of it, but every single person has experienced trauma in their lives, and they are always trying to run from it, trying to hide from it.
Yeah.
And so if you can dissolve that and gain some value out of that from a subconscious space, your world change. You and your world completely change.
I feel like there's a strong space for this even in that traditional kind of psychiatry therapist space as well, because it feels like that could possibly, this is going to be appalling to any psychotherapist out there, but again, if you're not delving into the subconscious there, you're just re-talking about the history over and again, expecting one day to all of a sudden be comfortable with it, or for her not to be hampering you anymore.
And that's when you work, that's the difference, is that they work in the past. And it's about going, okay, well, we can dive into the past for little bits if that is what is holding you back. Let's quickly dive into that. Let's release that. But now let's focus on the future. And I know that I'm oversimplifying processes and the techniques and all of that. But, you may have to go several times into the past to try to move forward and try to gain new insights on that as well. Because everything...
I shouldn't say I applaud. I acknowledge you saying that we're oversimplifying it to a degree, but there's a space for that as well.
Yeah.
Because not everyone has such overwhelming trauma that they would see that as oversimplified. Quite often in our life, once we start getting these hacks that you're talking about, that we go, I can do that. And then you experience the shift and transformational change around that aspect of your life. Then you start to understand, gosh, maybe this can also have a ripple effect to start encompassing other aspects of my life too.
100%. And that example of, and how's that working for you?
Thanks,
but that is actually a hack, because it's a question that stops you in your tracks. It literally is a question that goes to the subconscious and not the conscious, to go, how's that working for me? Well, it's not. Well, hang on.
Now I don't make sense anymore.
Yeah, but it's like, well, you keep playing out that same cycle, or you keep living that part of your life and you keep moaning and bemoaning about it. How is that actually working out for you? And I go, well, it's not. Well, stop. It is. It's how is that working? And by actually saying stop, how is that working out for you? And getting someone to really think it through. And then they're like, well, actually, it's working out for me because it's keeping me in the same place. And really, actually, I'm afraid to change.
Yeah, and I don't have to take responsibility for the negative impact that I'm being blaming on other things. Again, oversimplification.
Yeah.
There are, when you do ask yourself, there is something in it for you. What is it? Then you start to uncover, gosh, I can see now that which I have not been conscious of, and that I don't want that controlling me anymore.
Yep. That's exactly it. So these hacks essentially cut that narrative, that story, that record playing groove that you're on, to go, hang on. And the thing is, once you know something new, have that insight, you cannot go back to not knowing it. So you can't go back to that same record playing groove, or many people do try.
Yeah.
But that new knowledge has to be embedded somewhere. Yeah. So that means that their life has to change in some way.
I love it. And when you were saying before that, all of these processes were normally developed in our brains by the time we hit the age of 8, there are some responses in our life that is not playing a helpful role in our life. And it would be the equivalent of letting, a little 7-year-old tell us what to do next and how to feel about things and how to respond. We'd say, you're young and stupid. No, you don't have the experience to be able to direct me in my life. I'm older. I'm mature. I get to have those decisions. So it's like reclaiming that power back in your life again.
Oh, it 100% is. It is about going, hang on a sec. That's my 7-year-old self that is making me live that part of my life, or making me behave like that in meetings or with patients or clients, or that's triggering me. And there will always be different triggers for things as well. So you might go, well, I fixed that, but actually this is a new trigger. I now need to fix that, because that 7-year-old self, as I said, has built the architecture, and it's always about trying to deconstruct that architecture from that 7-year-old self.
But it's not a huge mountain. It's not Mount Everest to overcome now with your hacks. It's far more straightforward. It's very exciting. So you do one-on-one coaching, life and career coaching for individuals.
Yes.
But is it right that you can also go into actual businesses and organisations and help teams of people?
100%. So I do self-development individual coaching to work closely with that. I do it in a group space, and I also offer some one-to-ones, but I also go into teams and businesses to enable them to look at the way that they're working together, their team dynamics, how some of that is playing out in that space, and really get them all aligned to moving forward, whatever that forward space is in a business space. So that then brings in some of my strategy experience too, to go with that, the hacks as well, to go, well, as a business, we want to be performing like this in 5 years' time, and being able to articulate that, but then enabling it to live and breathe in every member of the team, and having every member of the team 100 and wholly and solely engaged with that as well.
And this is such an important space from the one-on-one coaching perspective, just because you might want to have a far happier, your version of successful life, and you feel like things are holding you back. And so from an individual perspective, for those who are suffering any kind of troubles in life, that they are less inclined to seek counselling through an actual psychologist or therapist because of the ramifications of that, coaches are a fantastic alternative to that space, and they will really have you aspiring towards the goals of your future and helping you to even articulate what those goals are for your future. But as you know, with so many industries, the recruitment pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and people are desperate to hang on to their team members. And in order to hang on to your team members, they must be happy, and they can't be happy in a dysfunctional team. So with your kind of work, I imagine you really do help align all of their vision, all their values and their goals as a group. So you've got this very strong, unified group instead of one that may be fractured.
You have described what I do with that 100%. But then it's also recruitment practices. So in ways, you go to buy a car. You don't buy a secondhand car without an RACV check. And so some of the things that I do from a recruitment space or a team building space as well, when you're recruiting, is why would you hire someone without a so-called RACV check? And there are things that you can look out for from that space as well. So it's not just ensuring that everyone from the team is 100% there, but it's a fantastic value proposition to set yourself apart from other places or businesses as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ooh. So if there are individuals or teams out there that think, oh my God, we need Simone to come on board and help us all out, what's their best next step?
Jump onto my website or look me up on all of the socials. My website's www.freshapproach.com.au, or find me on LinkedIn or any of the other socials. Reach out to me. I do offer complimentary discovery sessions to say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Are you able to help me? And that's how you can get a hold of me.
That's a terrific first step, because there's still so many questions that people will have, and I do love a chance to actually investigate further, to actually start to realize what the potential of working with a coach could be. I want to thank you so much for coming onto the program. I know I've kept you longer than what our allocation was, but I was very excited, and I kept having more and more questions. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that the listeners and viewers know about before we sign off?
Oh, my goodness. I think we've covered my whole life, what I offer now. We've covered everything, Julie. This has been an amazing experience, and I cannot thank you highly enough for the invitation to come on to the program.
Well, it's been better than what I expected, and my expectations were high. So thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate it. And do you quickly work with people virtually and in person as well?
Absolutely, 100%. Fantastic. So I do both face-to-face and I do virtual, and I can wrangle a room virtually as well as face-to-face.
Love it. Love it. I really do encourage everyone to contact Simone and see what she can do for you individually and as a team as well. Having these hacks can make an absolute difference to the way you live your life from today onwards, and the results and outcomes you get will be wildly different. Remember, you're that little cell getting bigger and bigger and bigger, overcoming so many more things because of the stuff that you've learned and the skills that you're developing over time. Go to freshapproach.com.au, contact Simone directly. All the links are in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Simone.
Thanks, Julie.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, then you should come along and join the club. The club is a whole library of lunch and learns with new lunch and learns being produced all the time that help your dental team gain greater success in your systems, in your team behaviours, in your patient management, in your patient engagement, in their treatment plans. They are usually around half an hour in length, and so team members can sit down, be paid for their lunch break, eat lunch while they're being inspired and delivered all of these insights and strategies that can be implemented so you all achieve greater levels of success. Also, Amina and I, my buddy from Dental Management Expertise, have a company, Dental Business Mastery, together. And our flagship online 1-year course for dental practice managers and dental practice owners to learn how to very successfully manage your dental practice is available. Head over to dentalbusinessmastery.com.au to find out more information, and has information about any other courses that we've got available. Also, make sure you do jump onto my website, julieparkerpracticesuccess.com.au, and you will see a whole load of free information. There are articles, the blog, downloads, templates, a whole load of things that are designed to help you overcome any specific challenge that you've got going on in your practice at the moment. If you have any suggestions of topics or guests that I can have on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for listening.